Hello. For this discussion, I have selected The Effects of Reward and Punishment on Reaction Times and Autonomic Activity in Hyperactive and Normal Children by Philip Firestone and Virginia Douglas, 1975. Now, in order to give an overview of ADHD, I've put together a couple of facts about hyperactivity just to provide a richer background for a critical analysis of Firestone and Douglas's study. The most important of these, I think, is that ADHD is the most commonly diagnosed illness in childhood. It highlights the relevance of, I think that this highlights the relevance of Firestone and Douglas's study regarding behavioural management of hyperactive children, and why I found this literature review of all of the three that I had done the most important in exploring punishment as a strategy for behavioural modification in children. Comparing Firestone and Douglas to Humphrey and Lee's article, Risk-Taking and Sensitivity to Punishment in Children with ADHD, ADHD and ODD, Humphrey and Lee were measuring risk-taking and sensitivity to punishment, whereas Firestone and Douglas compare reward and punishment to reveal their relative effectiveness in changing behaviour in ADHD. Now, bodies of previous research have revealed that positive reinforcement, so for instance tokens and pennies, actually reduces inappropriate behaviour in hyperactive children. However, but disapproval has been largely ignored, and I think that this study fills a gap in the literature regarding the effectiveness of punishment in managing behaviour of ADHD children. However, the article does not explicitly express which concepts are independent variables and which are dependent variables. Presenting punishment as the independent variable and behaviour as the dependent variable would have improved the theoretical framework of the research and clarified how the relationship between the two variables is actually conceptually defined. Hypotheses and aims. Firestone and Douglas aimed to determine whether reward, punishment, or a combination of two was most effective in changing the behaviour of hyperactive children. Additionally, they wanted to investigate whether there was a difference in the effectiveness of these measures in treating hyperactive children versus a control group of children. This aim is quite different to Mulvaney and Merbert's research on parental corporate punishment in early childhood, as data collection of child temperament and parenting styles is just not considered for a focus on reinforcement conditions, which I think actually relates more closely to the line of inquiry. Is punishment a reinforcement condition, an effective behaviour modification strategy for children? The aims, however, were clearly stated, and both aims logically followed from the background material, and they were testable. So just quickly, what is behavioural modification? Well, in psychology, it's a type of behavioural therapy in which the principles of operant conditioning, so reinforcement punishment, are used to eliminate some type of unwanted maladaptive behaviour. Now, the design method. Just moving on to that, the paper importantly raises the need for clarification and use of rewards in research methods, and then there are some critical issues that are revealed in terms of partial schedules. Previous research, which I've put up, reveals partial schedules are not as effective in behavioural management of hyperactive children, and these findings are importantly considered in the methods designed by Firestone and Douglas. So both sample groups were divided into three in the delayed reaction time task. The first group was placed under a reward condition, a second under the punishment condition, and a third under reward plus punishment condition. Now, under the reward condition, subjects were asked to respond as fast as possible to the instructions of the examiner to press the light, and they were encouraged whenever possible to overreach the baseline response, and they were encouraged whenever they did. There was no feedback for slower responses. Under the punishment condition, it was the opposite. They were required to, it was the same in the sense that they were required to perform at the same level, but were told when they were performing too slowly, and there was no response for a faster mean reaction time. Under the reward punishment conditions, where subjects were also required to respond just as quickly as the other two conditions. However, this group was alternately punished or rewarded after every trial. So I thought that the design method flowed logically from the aims, but not not from the proposed problems in the literature review, as partial schedules were mentioned. However, these were not used in the design method. The data collection, however, was similar for all samples in the study, which I thought was good. The findings, reaction times in both sample groups were influenced by subject group, reinforcement condition, and contextual variables. The three different reinforcement conditions successfully improved reaction times for the hyperactive and the control group. However, impulsive responses of hyperactive children significantly increased under the reward condition, a result not found in the other two. Overall, the hyperactive responded more slowly than controls, and the responses were more variable than the controls as well. Hyperactives made more interstimulus responses. These findings are relevant as they answer the question the researchers' aims and hypotheses, and furthermore, the descriptive and inferential statistics were appropriate to the intent of the hypothesis and the instruments used. Just a conclusion and discussions, and then wrap up with the limitations. Reward, punishment, and a mixture of the two are equally effective in modifying the hyperactive children's behaviour. Firestone and Douglas suggest that this is possibly because both reward and punishment provide feedback to both hyperactive and controlled children. Significance, the significance of the influence of a reward as an enforcement in affecting impulsive responses and interstimulus responses within the hyperactive group possibly suggests an attentional deficit. And I think that the impairment of attention is actually a feasible claim, as this often leads to poor performance in ADHD. So that is also supported by Zaffi and Bruning, 1966. However, there is no significant statistical difference between the reinforcement groups for the controlled children, and the results appear to indicate that reward punishment are equally effective for this sample. The discussions on effectiveness of punishment are quite distinct. The ones that are found in Douglas and Firestone are quite distinct from Mulvaney and Mulbert, who conclude punishment actually does contribute to negative behavioural adjustments in children. And I think that because of just the nature of the DTR task actually limits conclusions to being about limits the conclusions to the immediate effects, rather than being capable of exploring the unique negative impact of punishment on a children's long-term behaviour. Now, furthermore, the short duration of the delayed time reaction task may have made it difficult to distinguish differences in sample group and their relative behaviour. Now, the delay interval remains an important determinant in the effectiveness of punishment, and Solomon, Turner, and Lesak, 1968, also would support that. Furthermore, it is possible that reinforcement was not potent enough. Nicer comments and harsher criticism may have produced a larger variance in the results between the groups and between different reinforcement conditions also. And just lastly, just to quickly sum up, there is little knowledge about the extent to which impulsivity of hyperactivity interferes with the performance of different types of tasks, and that's just come up. I think that's another gap in the literature, and this could be an area for further research. I noticed that there was no attempt to control the impulsive responses other than being told that they were undesirable, and so therefore the relationship between reinforcement and impulsivity in hyperactive children could be better understood if the method is used to design impulsivity. Indeed, punishment could even be used to control impulsivity in future research. And that's it. Thank you.